Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dead Unicorn, the tabletop role-playing game club. My name is Corey. We are doing a really great in-depth review of the Star Wars role-playing game 2nd edition revised from West End Games, and I'm here with special guest Howard, a contributor to the channel for a long time.
Hi, everybody. Like you said, I'm Howard. I just ran the Adventure Jam, the two finalists, and I did their stories on this channel. You should totally check them out. I think they were a lot of fun. I'm a huge fan of the D6 system, which is made by West End, which is, of course, also the base of the Star Wars thing that we're about to review. So I have all kinds of thoughts and opinions, and I'm excited to share.
Okay. The first thing I want to do is I want to take you back in time. Long ago. A time when Star Wars existed. People knew what Star Wars was, but nobody cared. There wasn't this huge fandom that we have now. Star Wars was out there, but there were no toys on the shelves. We weren't having a constant deluge of streaming shows or any shows, really. It was a desert of Star Wars. It was a place where if you were a fan, you kind of lived in this little bubble. And that is the time in which this role-playing game, the first edition of this role-playing game came out. Star Wars, the role-playing game from West End Games. And it was just a cornucopia of just Star Wars knowledge, things that people didn't ever know. Like, there was a part in it that said, where do stormtroopers come from? Nobody knows. It's a secret. What is Yoda's race? Nobody knows. That's also a secret. These things were put in the Star Wars role-playing game. There was also parts of the Star Wars role-playing game that, like, fleshed out parts of it that you suspected should be there, but were never covered. Like, what do tanks look like? You know, are there tanks? What does the economy look like? What is music in the Star Wars universe? I mean, you saw the Jizz music, but are there other bands?
And if you didn't know, yes, that is the space version of jazz. He called it Jizz. That's a George Lucas problem.
It's true.
In fact, that band in the cantina were the Jizz Wailers.
So, these books kind of fleshed out the Star Wars universe, and in fact, led to the huge fandom that's here today. And I can draw a straight line. Star Wars: The Role-Playing Game was published. Timothy Zahn and his best-selling trilogy of novels. What are they called?
Thrawn.
Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command. The Thrawn trilogy. When Timothy Zahn was writing these novels, he wanted to find all of this knowledge on the Star Wars universe. He was like, well, how do regular people live? What's going on with, like, the economy? Or he wanted all of these details filled in. And he found them in the Star Wars role-playing game. So the reason his novels are so great is because of this role-playing game. And of course, those novels being so popular led to popular comic book series like Dark Empire and Tales of the Jedi, which led to more popular novels like Shadow Empire, which all led up to the re-release of Star Wars, the special edition, I believe, in 1996.
Yes, that's all correct. There are some other books that were included in the lore of the game, including The Courtship of Princess Leia and Splinter of the Mind's Eye. In fact, Splinter of the Mind's Eye is old enough, I think they actually drew from it for the game.
Yes. So there's the Han Solo trilogy, Splinters of the Mind's Eye, and the Lando Calrissian trilogy of books that were super old. But this book also came out in 1996. They've had 2 editions of this and a revised edition of 2nd edition, which kind of, I guess it was more like a re-release to come out at the same time as the special editions. And it's a really good book. It's a little scattered with where you can find the right things, like vehicle scale stuff isn't with vehicles for some reason.
it's a little bit of a mess, but for the time, I think it was pretty amazing.
It is.
And I like to put that out when I talk about it. I say for the time, because there's a lot of things they do now that had just not occurred to them before. And if you and I were to write a book right now, we've seen the organizational processes of a lot of the modern books. We know them by heart. We'd be like, well, you put this first, then you put that, then you put that. That seems most logical. They were doing it without any predecessor other than like D&D. So, and they didn't model their game at all on D&D.
So West End Games was a role-playing game company, a game company that bought a lot of licenses. They did the Ghostbusters RPG, they did Indiana Jones, and they all had the same rules. Later on, towards the end of this company's like gaming license, when they put out games, they made a Xenon Hercules game with special symbol dice. I think it was one of the first games that had symbol dice on them, and the DC adventures for like Superman and Batman and that kind of stuff, with also those same kind of symbol dice, only they were, Batman symbols and Superman symbols and evil Lex Luthor symbols on them. So if Star Wars was still being produced by West End Games today, you better believe they'd be symbol dice, just like the current version of Star Wars that's out right now, the Fantasy Flight version.
Well, the symbol in this case is just, demarks the points on the wild die. It's not a complex die where every side was a symbol. It's not like, oh, what does this mean? Let me, consult a chart.
Have you played Xenon Hercules or the DC Adventures game? They were all symbol dice.
Yeah, but they weren't using the same D6 system.
Yes, it was. It was the exact same.
Was it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The systems were exactly the same, except that the dice were symbol dice and worked on, successes and failures rather than total number on the die for your difficulties.
Well, that's a darn shame, because I like the D6 system like it is. I don't like success failure games. Like World of Darkness, live action. I enjoyed the tabletop version with roll 4 successes or whatever. It was like, nah, I just want to roll the dice, add them up, and know if I hit the score and be done with it.
So, introduction. So you get these like characters during the book that say, "I'm a bounty hunter." In the Star Wars universe, they're kind of like, they break the fourth wall a little. They like live in the Star Wars universe, but they know that this is the Star Wars universe, and they're trying to teach you the game.
It's the tutorial section of every video game. That's what
Remember,
it is.
No, you've got to come help my sister. She's been kidnapped. Press the A button to jump. Did you press the A button?
Exactly that.
So the first thing it does after like a little example how play goes is it says, hey, photocopy these pages and give them to your players as handouts. It kind of goes over the basic rules so they know what they're supposed to be doing, which, hey, excellent.
That leads for me directly into the first thing I love about this book and this gaming company is that they said, hey, photocopy this and use it. They didn't say, if you want a copy of the character sheet, just buy our supplement. That's the only way you could have it. They weren't out to rob their gamers of every penny. They were out to make a good game. In fact, the second edition was 100% compatible with the first. They just clarified rules and ordered them better. That's, to me, was amazing. And even beyond that, I believe it's on page 7 if you want to pull it up. Because when you first told me we were going to review this book, this is the first thing I thought about is why I love this company over WotC, or, well, back then they were JSR, but is on page 7, it says, if you just send us a self-addressed stamped envelope, we'll send you the differences in the rules for free. They're like 64 cents for the postage that will cost us to photocopy the rules and send them to you. And then you can just have them. You don't need to buy this book. To put that in the book just shocked me compared to the way they do stuff now. I knew it back then, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But now when you go back and you think about it, it is just stunning. the way that they looked at the game, and they were like, "We want y'all to play it. We want you to have fun, and we're going to keep producing new books because we figure you're going to wear them out. You're going to invite your friends to come play. Then they're going to want books. So we're not worried that we're going to stop having customers unless we make a third edition and a fourth edition and a fifth edition and change everything so that the old stuff doesn't work anymore. They didn't think like D&D, and I love that about them. Sorry, I went off on a little tangent.
No, that's great. This is a review of the book, and that's part of the book. I mean, so let's go to characters, making characters, developing a character. So there's two ways to make a character. The game master can just give you a bunch of points and throw you into the deep end, or you can select a template from the back of the book. And then add.
They actually lean towards the templates. In fact, they even say if you go for the template, but you want to like switch the race, get the template and look up the race and figure out the point cost difference for the race and see if that race could just be that template and go with it. And if not, then you have to like start playing with the numbers. They want you to use the templates in this book.
And not only that, but they make books of templates. There's a book called Heroes and Rogues. I got on my shelf back there. And it's just a book filled with templates. And they're like, photocopy every page of this book and like give them to your character, give them to your players. They can choose what they want, and then they can add their skills in, the extra skills that they get.
Pretty much, yeah. The templates were like pre-done character sheets for you, where you just put in your name and you spent the few points that you get to customize the template, and then you're good to go. And character creation would take like 5 minutes, maybe longer if you'd never played before. We had to explain to you how to spend the free points. That was about it. Some of the templates were, in my opinion, bad ideas. Like just because it made games super awkward, like the kid. I don't want the kid in the game, but that's just the way I play.
Sorry,
just like
I'm gonna have to start shooting at the kid. The kid needs to die.
And another one that I didn't like, but it does totally fit in the Star Wars universe, was the Ewok, who was basically the exact same as the kid, but now you're a teddy bear instead of a child. Which honestly, I feel better about shooting if I'm running the game.
Commander, I need you to torture this cute teddy bear for the information they have. Are we the baddies?
Exactly.
So, yeah, the cool ads. I love it when they put weird ads in books. This is one of the first ones. Cyberpunk did it first, and then Star Wars put full page ads for like joining the Empire.
I remember those. Yep.
Or like taking a cruise. It was really cool. Okay. So skills. Let's talk a bit about skills. You get a number of skill points to spread amongst your skills. This is a skill-based game. There's no levels, there's no ranks, there's no anything. Your skills just go up and your attributes go up. And so on one hand, like that's really cool and I really enjoy that. On the other hand, sometimes the skills are too similar. For example, like if I know how to use a sword and I'm really good at using a sword, if I pick up a staff, suddenly I'm clumsy McGee and I don't know how to use it. How does this stick work?
Well, all right. To be fair, if you're really good at using a sword, then you probably have a strong dexterity or a strong, I think, either dexterity or strength. I think that swords probably come under dex. But therefore, if you pick up a weapon you don't have the skill for, you can still use your dex. It doesn't mean you're untrained with the weapon and you're an idiot.
Yes, but you're just so far behind where you usually are, and if your game is
I would say using a dagger versus using a sword is a totally different like style of fighting, and swords are a regular like group that you could pick as a skill. Now, if it were like a specialized type of sword, you would have swords, and then you'd have a specialization. in that
what I
sword.
mean is, like, in this game you have melee weapons and then you have lightsabers. And lightsabers, if you don't know how to use a regular sword or a vibro sword, suddenly a lightsaber seems like you're not totally terrible with it. You have a dexterity skill, but it's like you have zero skill in it because you have zero skill in it. Like
I would agree with
anything
that,
you do
though.
with dexterity, you'd be as good as with a lightsaber, even though you had
I would
sword
agree
training.
with that. The lightsaber is a totally different animal from any other sword. I mean, there's no weight to it beyond the initial like it's like it weighs as much as like a flashlight. Only the one end of it is super deadly.
We're just
It makes no sense
we're just
for
gonna
what
have to
that is.
disagree with about this. I think, like, if you have some if you have adjacent experience and some skills, having a huge skill list, and this is the same for like Cyberpunk or World of Darkness or any skill based game, in my opinion. It's just a flaw of skill based games.
Well, Hero System looks a lot like D&D, but it is also skill based, and they do the same thing. They're like, all right, you have your melee weapons as a group, like it'll be like maces and axes, and then underneath that you're like battle axe. So you have the skill in the group, and then you have the specialization, and they did that here too
They do have. I
eventually.
was about to
So
bring that
you
up.
have melee weapons.
I was going to bring that
Yeah,
up, that there are
and that's
specializations and you can
and that's what I'm
specialize.
saying. And that's what I'm saying. If you, in order to have a specialization in a type of sword, you need to have the group first. But what I'm saying is lightsaber doesn't belong in that other group. It's a totally different animal.
I am confused on how specializations work, though. Right? If I have a specialization, it says you can spend one die of your character's beginning skill guys to get a specialization. How does specialization, when I roll my specialization, do I add my attribute, then my skill, then my specialization, and add all those dice together?
Exactly.
That's how that works? Okay.
Right. So if you have the group, then anything in that group, you add your attribute in the group. And then the specialization gives you even more dice for the one thing that you've super trained on.
Right. And then there's advanced skills. And these cost twice as much to get. If you don't have them, you can't use them. Like all the other skills, if you don't have the skill, it's okay. You can just roll your base attribute, right? But with advanced skills, you need that training.
Well, yeah, because if you've never been on a ship, you can't just be like, well, I have an attribute in technical, so I obviously can operate this. And you're like, well, no, you obviously can't. If you've never been on a ship before, you have no idea what that console does. I can't walk onto the bridge of the Starship Enterprise and just start pushing buttons and be like, I'm kind of smart. I'll figure it out. It doesn't make any sense.
I totally agree with that. I think that's reasonable.
Oh, okay.
Just decide if your character is force sensitive. So here you can start, any character can start force sensitive for free. It doesn't cost points or anything like that. But you also can get the 3 force skills, but it doesn't say like how a starting character gets. You can either just start with them or not. And usually if you start with all 3, you're just a Jedi. That's because you are a
When you're
Jedi.
when you're force sensitive, you get one die in each of them automatically.
No, it
And
doesn't say that.
then
I don't think so.
doesn't it?
No, it says you can choose to have those things. It says only a rare few are sensitive to the force. You can just click yes or no. The force sensitive line starts with 2 force points. A character with no starts with only 1 force. It's only force points that change.
Oh,
Then pick force powers number 4
well,
if your
force
character is force
points.
sensitive and starts with any of the 3 force skills. And starts with any of the 3 force skills, your character knows at least 1 force power. It doesn't say you start
Oh,
with
okay.
those force skills. There's no.
All right. So a force point is unrelated. That's a different section.
Yes.
So that the people at home are clear. All right. So if I mean I haven't actually run this in forever,
It's,
but all right. So maybe you only start with one die in one of them.
no, it
And
doesn't say
that's
that.
possible.
It doesn't say that anywhere. What it says is you may or may not start with these 4 skills. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, you get to
Okay, so a
choose.
force skill, the force skills are control, sense, and alter. Let's
Right.
let's spell that out for everybody. And then underneath that, the force powers In this case, your skills, the force skills are like attributes in every other way, and the force powers are like skills for attributes.
Yes.
So if you want to do something like the classic alter maneuver of these aren't the droids you're looking for, you can do that with your straight alter ability if you have a die in it. But then if you can also practice that as a specific skill under alter, the same way you would have a skill in brawling parry underneath your dexterity.
So here's what I think it is, because they don't really clarify it. I think is you can just decide you're force sensitive or not, and then you can spend skill points in the three force skills: control, sense, and alter. And if you don't have them, you don't have them, and if you do have them, you do have them. You just have to spend those
That does
skill
make
points
sense.
in them.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You know what? You're right. With those starting 3 points that you can put anywhere, I think you can just put them into your force skills if you decide to be force sensitive.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. And then later on, if you're not force sensitive and you change your mind later, I know it's 20 XP, but it says you do get a at least one die, maybe two, but at least one die to put in there and start one of those
And
three force sensor alter.
force powers aren't
And
like
that's
skills. Force powers aren't like skills. You don't put dice in them. I mean, you could make a specialize, like you can say specialize.
yes, you
This
do. You absolutely do put dice in them.
we'll go there. We'll read it when we get there. I think, unless you want to go there right now.
Okay.
Let's go there. Let's go to force
Let's
powers,
do it.
everybody. How to
Page
game master.
136.
Um,
I'm hearing somebody else. Is your wife there? Is that Crystal?
no, nobody else is here.
Oh, well, I'm
These
hearing
are
things. I'm
skills.
going crazy.
Controlling
I was gonna
skills.
say hi,
The
Crystal. Never mind.
rules. Where's the force? Combat and injuries.
The force is everywhere. It is an energy that binds us, man.
Don't make me throttle you through the computer. Here it is, the force.
You have.
So, force skills. Teachers. Okay, character point cost. To improve a force skill by 1 pip costs a number of character points equal to the current number before the D, just like skills. Doubling the character point
Right.
cost without a teacher. Yeah, training time. We're going to get to training time. Training time is a weird thing. Force powers. A character may be taught new force power each time a force skill is improved by 1 pip. The new power is chosen by the teacher and must use the improved force skill. It doesn't say that you just use the force skill. It's not a skill of its own. So,
Okay.
and here's the thing, if a force power uses multiple skills, you have to roll those as an action for each skill. So, like the first round you roll your sense, and then the second time you roll your control, and then you can use a control sense power.
It makes sense though. Like the lightsaber combat is the most complicated. Even though there is some stuff that uses all three force sense control sense and alter.
Yes.
I think that it's control and sense for lightsaber, and one is your accuracy, which is your sense, and then control is how much damage you're doing. You have a base of 5 dice with a lightsaber, and then you can spend dice to increase that damage.
So lightsaber
is crazy powerful.
On 148, lightsaber combat is control and sense. So you'll have to take 2 actions. First, you'll have to roll your control and make a moderate difficulty, and then roll your sense and make a moderate difficulty. Oh, the sense is an easy difficulty. Sorry, they're 2 different difficulties. Mind you, you can do multiple actions around if you take a die code penalty. And the effect. Jedi uses this power to wield this elegant but difficult control weapon while also sensing their opponent's action through the Force. The Jedi successful using this power adds her sense dice to her lightsaber skill roll when attacking and parrying. The Jedi may add or subtract part or all of her control dice to the lightsaber's damage. Players must decide how many control dice they are adding or subtracting when the power is activated. That is super powerful.
It super is. Absolutely.
Really cool.
There's a reason that the lightsaber is more powerful in the hands of a Jedi than anybody else, because he can throw his control on there and add to the damage. To be fair, and this is something that it seems weird overpowered, you have to keep in mind that the sheer amount of points you have to spend to raise beyond the first die in your control in your sense, so that you're actually hitting with this thing and doing damage is expensive. It's 10 times the die code. So if you want to go
Nope.
from one die to 1D plus
I
one,
just
that's
told you it's
10
not that.
points.
To raise
And
control sense and alter is the same as any other skill cost.
no, except that I'm telling you, hang on, let me find it again. I just saw it. It is under Jedi training? No, force skills. A teacher must have at least 3D in the force skill to be taught.
Mm-hmm.
Teacher skill must keep students level stay, must have teacher, blah, blah, blah. All right. Learning a force skill requires 1 week of intensive study and costs 10 character points.
Wait, hold on. Where is that? What page?
Page 140.
Okay, I'm one page over.
The character will then get the skill at 1 die.
Oh, for the first time. Yeah, it's 10
Right.
to get your first die. And then after that, it's raised like any other force power. A character taught anew each time. Where is it? To improve a force skill by 1 pip costs a number of character points equal to the current number before the D. So the number of dice you roll is how much it costs to raise it by 1 pip. On 140, under force skills, control sense alter.
Yeah, I think that I think that their intent and what they actually wrote may have been their own fault for confusing it. Because if they had left it the way that all the other stuff works, because everything else would be to buy the first die would be 10 points, to buy the second pip would be another 10, or to get the pips would be 10 each, and then to go to the next die would be 20.
So
so that, I mean, it makes sense, except the problem is they called it 4 skills, and then the stuff underneath that powers. If they had just flipped that and just said that control sense and alter the powers like attributes, and then the skill things were,
but that's not how
your
this works
actual.
at all. That's not how this.
Yeah, I'm just saying though, if you just flip the names, it would start to make some sense.
So basically, in the D6 system, which is like a more generic version of what the Star Wars game is, there are magic systems where
I know the differences between this and D6. Trust me.
where there's a magic system where your mana is an attribute, and then you have mana skills under that work as spells.
Right, absolutely, and that's how I thought this would be, and I guess it's not.
It is not. It's a little different. Let's go to let's finish off the character creation area if I can get there.
There's also a section in this creation for special abilities, and that's mostly going to be with your races that are not human. Like you have Wookiee claws, which give you a bonus to damage in combat. The Gotal had those weird cones on their head that would let them sense technology, which is the weirdest, most random power. I mean, it's great if you're looking for a droid in a forest, maybe, and he's hiding behind a tree. Other than that, I don't know what that's for.
So
if you're walking around on a ship, are you just like, I need an Excedrin? Oh, so much tech.
So if you choose to not create a template, you can just grab a species. Like it says human here is 12 attribute dice. Here's your floor and here's your ceiling. You have to put at least 2 dice in everything, but you can't put more than 4 dice in anything. And every alien species works like this. Some have less attribute dice because they have a cool special power. Some have a higher ceiling or a lower floor. You can put 1 die for some species. Right? Right. Okay. Then the last thing is character advancement. Improving skills is easy. You just spend a number of character points equal to the die that you have. So if you have, and then you get +1 pip. So I guess we have to explain pips and dice.
I guess, yeah, because if they've never played the game. All right, so unlike D&D, this game, you get a handful of dice to roll. Let's say we're going something off your strength, like you want to go swimming. If you have a 2D strength, and one die is in the swimming skill, you're going to have 3 dice to roll. But there's a thing called pips, which are a level between the base die before you go to the next level of die. So a pip is like a +1 or a +2. And that mostly matters when you're trying to increase your levels, whether it be for the whole attribute, which would be 10 times, or the just the skill, which is 1 times. But let's say you have a one die +2 in swimming, and in like 2D in strength, so you have 3D +2 to roll. So you roll your 3 dice, you add your 2, and then if Corey's running it, he'll say whether or not you made the difficulty of swimming. Which, if that's hard to do, then I'm assuming it's upstream, something complex, or away from somebody. I don't know. But that would be how that would work. And the pips do combine let's say you have a 1d +1 in your strength and 1d +2 in swimming, then that actually adds to 3 dice, not 2d +3.
Yes.
Because at 3, it becomes the next die.
That's right. So you can have a +1, a +2, but if you get to +3, it becomes automatically a new die. A new die roll. So you roll basically pools of dice. So if your attribute is 3 dice, 3D, you roll 3d6. It's all 6-sided dice. That's why it's called the D6 system. And here, every time you spend a number of character points equal to the die of your skill, you get +1 pip. And when it comes for your attribute, it's 10 times that amount to get +1 pip. But for specializations, it's half that amount to get +1 pip. And
right, that's specializations being I swim really great, but in this case only American style, just straightforward, or freestyle, I think it's probably called in other countries.
one of the rules nobody ever uses, and I've never seen anybody use it, is training time. When you spend XP, you have to spend an amount of time training that skill in order to actually use the XP and get that skill upgrade.
I will say this, whenever I have tried to implement in any system training time, I got a lot of feedback from the players who were just mad, like I had slapped them. I even got feedback. I don't think it was this game, but I think there is a way to get this advantage in this game, where if you have a appropriate teacher, you can get like a discount. It might not be in Star Wars; it might be the regular D6 system, but you can get a discount on your on the cost to improve in skills if you have a teacher. And people are like, "Oh, I don't want to deal with all that." And I'm like, "I'm offering you to save you. Okay, cool, whatever. I'll just shut up with that."
Here's a couple things that really suck when it comes to training time and teachers. You better write your adventures and give out rewards enough that people have enough money to support themselves during the training time. Because one of the problems I was having in your D6 fantasy game is that I didn't have enough money ever to like pay for my training, pay for my room and board, pay for my mount. I was like, oh my god, I am just hemorrhaging money, and these jobs that I'm getting from adventuring are not paying enough. Not enough, not fast enough.
All right. In my defense, the first thing I gave y'all when you went to the first major city, you did a job for a local inn, and they offered you free room and board there forever. And y'all didn't use it. That's on you. You immediately went, "I want to go to the school," and the school's like, "We charge," and you're like, "I'll get a job here," and they're like, "Well, all right," and they gave you a job.
Well, I assume I had to go get training to do. You said I had to train to get more magic.
Right. Train means to spend your character points and to train. But yes, if you train with them, it would be cheaper and it would be faster. But either way, it works.
That's what I got. Well, let's table that. We got to talk about Star Wars.
Similar system, because it was D6 system, but it was.
But yeah, a lot of people don't like this this training. It can be like, if you like that kind of crunchiness of, every day I have to figure out how I'm using all of my money and my ammo and all of these things appropriately. Like a lot of, like some hardcore gamers really love that kind of intricacy with role playing games. I mean, it's good, but for people who just want to have fun and adventure, I mean, it is fun for them, but for other people who just want that adventure, just want that story, just want that drama, training time seems weird. It seems like, why is the story suddenly stopping? We need to continue story.
I feel like the training time is a thing that can be worked out to be like, all right, so between this adventure you just went on and the next one, what would you be doing? And you're like, I want to train on this. The other guy says, I want to train on that. Some lady says she wants to train on this thing. And I'm like, cool, that's where your points are going. If you spent any time in the game uh, meeting people, finding teachers, etc., maybe you can shorten that time so you can train on two things between adventures, or you have the points to train on two things. All that. And then when we start the next adventure, you just have that. I wouldn't want to necessarily role play out normally the in between time of the actual training, unless I was in like a heavy RP game and y'all were hoping to get to know the teacher, and while you're there, like uncover some deeper mystery, which I'm totally good with that kind of role play game too. I love that. So I guess it would depend on how you're running it, what kind of themes you're going for in the game.
Exactly. Like
So I think it can work in some games.
If you want that kind of feel where like your character suddenly gets new powers because they're that cool, like, Rey in The Force Awakens, when they just kind of, she's so good that new powers just kind of appear on her, anime style. Like, suddenly your anime character now learns the new technique right in the middle of combat. Like, yeah, kind of change that training rule.
Honestly, I don't think that would have bothered me if that had been the same way that all the Jedi had been learning. But it kind of made her, and this is not a complaint on the game system at all, it made her the Super Mary Sue of the entire, Star Wars nineology, whatever the word for that is. Just because, we watch how Ben Kenobi and we watch how Obi-Wan learn, Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan, and then, of course, later Luke Skywalker and Anakin, and none of them immediately went, oh, I think I can do this now. It was always a training.
Let's talk a little about how these new three Disney movies have totally kind of shattered the old ways of Star Wars by talking a little bit about ships and hyperspace. We're going to move forward to ship movement, movement and chase, space travel, and combat. What is a starship? How do I get a ship? I want to talk about hyperdrives real quick. Because people like to say that Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars with the hyperdrive smash, hyperdrive RAM. And really, by these rules, there's ramming rules, there's hyperdrive rules. It's totally possible in old Star Wars to have done that. What is impossible is all of the things that J.J. Abrams' Star Wars movies did, starting with The Force Awakens, firing a laser shot through hyperspace, and then having people in real space see that laser shot going across the universe somehow. That's not a thing. You made that up.
Also, landing the ship inside the atmosphere, that way too close.
Yeah, that's another thing that should be impossible. Hyperspace shadows, you cannot create a hyperspace kind of wave, or you can't be in hyperspace in a gravity shadow. It is an impossibility. But J.J. Abrams was like, no, I'm throwing that away too.
And also, just the idea that a human mind could do it instead of an astrogation droid, even if you ignored the space folding and how a hyperdrive worked, the idea that a human mind could just eyeball something that your eyes couldn't perceive fast enough to make that happen.
We're going to go one step further, though. In Rise of Skywalker, hyperspace skipping. Yeah. What? Huh? That is... You want to talk about breaking Star Wars. That just did it. And then there's all the new force powers, like teleporting objects.
Something else Abrams did when we're talking about the hyperdrives was he took away the interim of sitting on the ship. You're just we turn on the hyperdrive. We're now at the next scene where we're there.
So
There was that whole thing in the first movie when they left Tatooine, where they got to sit and talk and like chill for a moment and actually get to know each other before they arrived at where they thought Alderaan would be. And there was now a bunch of rocks, but
so
it makes sense.
there's a big old chart here about travel times and hyperdrive multipliers and how much time it takes to get from place to place in sublight and in hyperspace. And I'm not going to blame J.J. Abrams for this mishap, because it was broken before in the Clone Wars cartoon series, where Anakin is able to just hyperdrive all over. He went to the planet of angels in the Outer Rim and then back to Coruscant in a matter of moments.
Okay, that is dumb.
Yeah. So George Lucas
used the Force on the hyperdrive in Force Hyper. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
What's
now.
Interesting is in the beginning of the role-playing game, George Lucas would certify with his signature that each one of these books were completely canon. And then somewhere along the way, he was just like, I don't care anymore. Whatever.
It's because he would get a new idea and he'd really want to go with it. And they'd be like, well, this thing is canon. It's like, well, I didn't write it, so I don't care.
Yeah.
And even sometimes when he did write it, he didn't care. Like when, Leia said she remembered her mother. No, you don't. No, you do not.
Anyways, canon hijinks aside, hyperdrive multipliers were a really cool rule that made you understand why Han Solo said 0.5 past light speed. It means he had a 0.5 hyperdrive multiplier. They made things work really well and really smoothly, and like these rules are excellent. And if you were a good storyteller, you could tell stories within these rules, like every single freaking game master who used the old Star Wars role-playing game. It appears that if you're good at storytelling, you can use this to your advantage. But, lazy freaking storytellers out there ruining Star Wars.
I will say, and because it's on the same subject, there was a guy who I admired and thought he was a really good storyteller, where he said Star Wars is a space opera, and he's absolutely right. That is the right genre. So for him, and this is the way he described it to me, was travel through hyperspace takes as long as the story needs it to. And I understand how he ran games, and I get it. And it did, because he said when you're watching the story of like the original A New Hope, you're watching it and they left Tatooine, they went into hyperdrive or in hyperspace, and then they came out when all the conversations getting to know everybody ended. That's when they come out and they find out the next cool story beat. So for him, that's just how it worked. And I'm not going to say that he's a bad storyteller or narrator for that. I get it. I kind of like it. But as soon as you want to do any type of race or space combat, then the numbers are really helpful. When that stuff is not a factor, then use the story beat method.
Hold on. I'm going to push back on that just a little bit here. Why should I spend money to upgrade my ship? I have a story-driven hyperdrive. I don't need a ×1 or ×0.5. I can get the cheapest one because my hyperdrive is driven by the story, not by any sort of in-world technology or reason.
Well, like I said, if you never are in a situation where the time is a factor, it won't matter. Like if you're not being chased or you're not trying to race to a goal before someone else, it doesn't matter. But as soon as it does, then this math needs to be brought in. That's literally what I just said.
But by the way, the episode where Anakin goes to the Outer Rim and comes back in like a couple minutes, it was to get a potion or a cure to a disease that it was very time sensitive.
Well, then that's bad storytelling. But
Right?
I wasn't in that game, so I didn't notice the storyteller running it
Dave
because we're not
Filoni,
talking about a game.
Dave Filoni, fix your shit.
He could have taken the person that needed the potion with. That would help.
Okay. But yeah, sublight drives, like, they go into such great detail on how all of the starship systems work, where the sensors are, how the turbo lasers work, passive scan, search, and focus. It's so uh, on the one hand, like, their detail on it makes this world feel great, and on the other hand, it's a little confusing when you're trying to just do something and uh like, what do you mean I have to search? What do you mean I have to focus? I'm just in every other game I can just make a roll and my sensors work, right?
Yeah. Well, I
And
mean, you still have to roll. I'm not sure I don't understand what you're saying.
well, there's different, okay. So for
Are you saying you have to roll to turn the sensors on and then roll to use them?
no, I'm saying that a player may not know what a what passive or what scan or what search or what focus is. They don't give a shit about that. They're just like, I'm using sensors. I'm scanning for
Okay.
life forms. Or when it comes to shields, like, you have to angle your shields correctly and put one die in front and one die in back, and the difficulty goes up depending on where your shield, how you're angling your shield. And on one hand, I get that. It's kind of like how shields actually worked uh in Star Wars, but also, like, that kind of detail can bog down a game and keep you from actually doing the action you want.
True. There is weird problems with action economy in this game, not just for starship combat, but also regular combat. But we're not in the combat section yet. I will say this though: were you in the game with me of Star Wars? I can't remember the guy's name. He had replaced the entire Starship combat system with the Star Trek combat system. The exception of calling, well, we couldn't still call it warp speed, you call it the hyperdrive, but it was basically Star Trek system where you had a certain number of points. You're like, I'm going to allocate these points towards shields. I'm going to put this towards our firepower, and it would change each round. Were you in that game with me?
Mm-mm.
That was back at my brother's store. No?
Nope, nope.
And I will say that it did work. And it did actually work much better, which is sad because as much as I love the D6 system, I'm not in love with their Starship combat system.
Ion cannons are great. I love that they go straight through shields. Shields do not stop ion cannons, and they just make everything harder to, like, your ship will be less and less good as you are ionized. Um, what I don't like about ships and vehicles is I like it and I don't like it. And it's not in the starship section, it's in a different section. And it is um it's not even in the vehicle section. Uh where is it? It's on page 95, scale.
Yeah.
So, if you're a character and you're fighting a speeder, this you have your damage goes down by 2, but your ability to hit them go up by 2, and their ability to hit you go down by 2, but their damage goes up by 2. Basically, this means it is insanely hard to damage a speeder. It's almost impossible to damage a walker or a starfighter with your gun. And yet we see that all the time in Star Wars. We see a guy shoot a starfighter and do some damage, which causes it to have to leave or even crash.
No, not like a starfighter. I don't
Uh-huh. I
remember
have
seeing that.
seen that a bunch in Star Wars. That's
Is it the cartoons?
in the cartoon and in some of the streaming services, I believe.
Like when you understand the amount of power that a Jedi wields with his lightsaber, it doesn't bother me as much that you can take down a walker or at least get into a walker with a
Oh,
lightsaber
I
because it was a lightsaber.
I have a perfect example. Jango Fett's fire spray shot at Obi-Wan Kenobi and he fell down. In Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
There's a huge explosion too, and he just like, ah, I guess I'll get up now. It was so funny.
I guess one of the problems with with the scale thing that I would say that I would immediately notice is if you're on a speeder, and I could see that saying it's harder to damage a speeder because it's like shooting a car, but the person sitting on it shouldn't get any bonus.
So
Like,
here's my thing with scale. I think scale is a good idea. I think they're the scale that they have here is too unforgiving. I could see like speeders and walkers being at the same scale. I don't know why they're different. But also,
well, okay, a speeder is technically like the land speeder that Luke is in. Is definitely no match for any walker. Even the scout walker would step on it and be destroyed.
so let's instead say like light vehicles and military vehicles should be in different scales.
I
That
can
would
see
make
that.
sense. And starfighters, here's the thing about starfighters. Starfighters are supposed to mimic like fighter planes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And fighter planes were supposed to be able to take down ships. They were supposed to, and here, a starfighter scale is 6D, and capital ships is double that at 12D. You have 6 dice to make up to try and fight a capital ship in a starfighter. Starfighters are supposed to be like big space scale weapons that you attach to just like a cockpit and some life support and an engine. It's supposed to be the best weapons you can put on the smallest frame possible in order to maximize damage. That's the entire point of having a fighter.
Okay, so you're saying that you don't dislike the scale idea, but you would probably rework all these numbers.
Exactly. That's exactly what I would do.
I would also change the. I don't think 24D even is enough for what a Death Star does. I mean, it's the size of a moon and it can blow up
A
planets. I
super
don't think
star
that.
destroyer rammed it, and nobody cared.
Yeah, it did nothing really. So, the Super Star Destroyer, I would say the Super Star Destroyer might be at the size of double a capital. I could see that, but not the Death Star itself. No.
So yeah, that's basically my beef with scale. Is I think it's a great idea. I like the idea of scale. I just think that the numbers are bunk.
Yeah, and for the Death Star, what I would do is just say, look, the Death Star is a story beat item. You can't shoot at it and expect it to explode
Yeah,
unless you have a special thing, which in this case was the plans that told you where a weak spot was. That was going to be a pain in the bottom to go hit.
and
I don't know if we're supposed to swear on this or not. So
you can. Okay, so for me, like yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's a story beat. There has to be like a story reason to kill it, or like there has to be some big thing that it falls into. You trick it to make it fall into a star or a black hole, or you know.
I would give it a roll to hit you if it's shooting at you, but if it hits you, I wouldn't bother to roll damage. I'd be like, and you got hit.
Yeah, and you're
The end.
dead. Congratulations. Um, so let's talk about the die rolling system real quick.
Okay.
So you have your pool of d6s, right? And
Mm-hmm.
your lowest stat is probably going to be a 2 dice. It could be 1 if you play an alien species. One of your
It could
dice,
be. Well, I don't remember offhand how humans start in here, but I know how it works in the regular D6 system. It could be 1, but generally, if you're at a 1, it meant that you had something wrong. Like maybe you had a limp, so you'd have a 1 in your dexterity. It meant there was something deficient about you. So if you had a 1 in intelligence, well, it meant that there was something wrong with you mentally.
so you have one of your dice. One of those d6s is a different color and it's a wild die. If you roll a 6 on that die, it explodes and you can roll it again and add that together. And if it keeps rolling 6, you keep exploding it. And if you roll a 1, you take your highest die and delete it from your roll.
There are actually 3 options. They narrowed it down for the D6. The first is if you roll a 1, that exactly that happens. I think the second was the GM or the GM, the storyteller, the narrator says basically, don't worry about it, just add it as normal as a 1. Or the third option was he goes, that's cool. Also, there's a complication. So he can ignore it. He can take away a die as well as the 1, or he can add in a complication.
That's right. That's exactly how that works. There were 3 options. I have a problem with the wild die, and it's not that you can get an exploding or a complication result. It's that I think it happens too often.
The 1 in 6 chance every roll.
It's a 1 in 3 chance something happens every roll. 1 in 6 that it's good. 1 in 6 that it's bad.
Well, yeah. But the idea is to make the game more cinematic, so having stuff happen more often does do that. And the DM or GM can ignore it if it's bad. It says so right in the rules. He can just be like, yeah, you got a 1 on that one. Just keep going.
So let's talk about this is all going to stack on each other for a point that I'm making here. But there's also the difficulties. So very easy starts at a 5.
Right.
Then every difficulty goes up by 5 for that. So an easy roll is a 10. Which means if you're rolling 2 dice, you're not going to be making it all that often.
True.
So easy is pretty hard to do on 2 dice.
If you are skilled at something, like just have the basics of that whole skill group, not even specialized, and you are a regular person who has a 2 in all his stats, then you are rolling 3 dice, not 2.
If you have a skill, yes.
So it is easy to do something that you know how to do.
I think it's a little off. I think that difficulty should be in multiples of 3, not 5. I think it's pretty hard to do anything that you're not skilled in. Which brings me back to, if you're not skilled in something, you freaking suck in it.
Well, with the exception of specialized skills, you can roll your attribute for all the regular skills. All the stuff like everybody knows how to run or swim or, In fact, I think that even like using computers is considered a regular skill in Star Wars. It's their specialized stuff is like repairing repulsor lifts.
So that's basically my biggest my absolute biggest gripe is the difficulties are too difficult and the wild die does things too often. And I have a solution to this. I have a homebrew solution that fixes it all. And that is
charge to a 3?
No. My solution to fix both of these things at once is to keep the difficulty numbers just where they are and replace the wild die from a D6 and make it a D12. And then on a 12 it explodes as normal, and at a 1 it does the terrible thing as normal. It's everything else is a D6 except for the wild die, which is a D12.
That gives everybody a huge bonus to their numbers, right? Just starting off at the lower levels.
But it makes it so easy rolls can actually be attained.
Well, yeah, but now you've made it so everybody can easily. I have 1 die. I'm going to roll a D12. 1 die meaning like I have a limp. I'm going to roll my D12, and I'm going to run just as fast as everybody else.
Well, no, everybody else is running faster now, I guess.
No, everybody runs it. Your movement is 10.
Oh, I think that's
when you when you take an action to run, you can double your movement. So that's what running would do. So you're like, all right, well, I'm going to try and double my movement. And now, if you do that and I do that, even though I have a limp, we're both running at 20.
I I
Unless I
don't
rolled a
think
1, or if you rolled a 1 on your wild die, then you're probably not. My limpy guy's going, Also, if anyone has a limp, I'm not in any way insulting the handicap. I'm just saying that if you have a limp, it's hard to run. That's all I'm saying.
I'm just saying that easy. If you can't make something that's easy, or it's really hard to make something that's easy, it feels bad. And you know
Right.
me, I'm all about the vibes of a game. I'm less concerned with the realism than the vibes. Even with that scale thing, I can like whatever. I'm fine with that. That's actually relatively minor compared to like I can't make any of my rolls. It feels so
What I normally,
bad.
the way I run it is not rules as written. But the way I run it is, if you're doing anything that's easy, I don't make you roll unless you're doing it under duress, like combat. Like if I'm shooting at you, now it matters that you're running or that you're trying to program a computer or whatever. Regular,
But but we're not judging this book based on what how we personally run it. We're basing it on we're
I
running
understand that.
we're reviewing this game how it is.
Yeah.
Um okay.
But you can't talk about a problem without talking about the
The
solution either.
solutions, the
So
solutions we like to bring to it as game masters. Yeah, definitely. I think a D12 is fine. I think it would solve the
I
problems.
think a D8 maybe. I think a D12 is too much.
D8, I'll take it. I'll take the D8. I think that's fine too. Actually, last night I was up in bed just thinking about the die that I would change it. I was like, is a D8? Would a D8 be okay? Would a D10 be okay? Would a D12? What are you going to say during the stream tomorrow, Corey? What are you going to say? And I decided on the D12. But D8, like, it's on the board for me.
I have actually, I did work out the math on that. I even thought about making my own version of the system because I use the OpenD6 already for the game that I've run in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, maybe I even made a logo for it, everything, called it Wild D8. I did the math and I thought about it really hard, but then I was like, do I really want to bother with all this extra work to change one die and have to recalculate all of this stuff and all that? And I think I ultimately decided it was too much work, but also I was doing this in my own head, and I didn't have like a group to test run it with. I mean, I could have run it with you guys, but when I was doing the math, I was sitting home alone and worked out the math over a couple of weeks. And I was like, maybe a D8 would be better. I would never have gone D12. But
Okay.
I did think about it, and if I did that, I would have called it the Wild D8 system, very similar to the Open D6 system.
Oh, I forgot to point out this thing about character creation. Oh God, where is it? Under attributes. You're gonna do a spit take when I tell you this. I forgot to tell you about learning attributes. It's 10 times the cost, right? But there's more.
Of the die code. So like if it's you have one
Yes.
die, it's 10, and then to buy the next pip, and then to buy the next pip, and then to go up the level, at that point it becomes 2 times and so on.
But there's another thing that you have to do. So when you buy a new pip, you have to roll your current attribute, and your game master has to roll the max that your species has. And if you roll above it, you're
I do
capped.
know that. I do know about that. I have never seen a GM enforce that rule. We've always treated it as optional, but yeah, I know it's there.
Oh, it's so bad. It kills me. It's so.
You just might throw away like 10 XP or 20 XP, depending on what you're going up to. But the idea was to make it very hard to go up. And I get why they're doing it, but to lose that much XP is just cruel.
So
Especially if you're going from like 4 to 5,
character points
because that's
aren't
40 XP.
character points aren't just XP. So let's talk about character points and force points. You want to do that?
Sure.
Um,
Um, I think they are just XP because I don't spend them like you do. You have a fear of missing a roll. I don't care if I miss a roll. I'm like, I missed it. How's the story go if I miss it? You were like, but if I have the ability to not miss it, I do everything I can to never miss the roll. And yeah, for those at home, you can you start the game with the XP you're going to get at the end of the game. And if during the game you miss a roll, you can be like, I'm going to spend one of my 5 character points and try to add that on so that I don't miss the roll. And there is something that they did different in D6 versus Star Wars. In Star Wars, that character point, it's not a wild die. It's like a wild die. It does explode, but ones are just added as ones. There's no additional possibility of screw up. They're like a positive version of a wild die. They're positively charged.
So here's the thing. I brought this up with every single other game that lets you spend XP to get a bonus to your die roll. I hate them. I hate all of them. Because one, either you're going to get that player who will refuse to spend an XP to give their die roll a bonus even when the entire party is in trouble, and he's like, well, if we fail, we fail. I don't care. It's, I'm hoarding.
I'm not that bad.
I'm hoarding it. So because this is for my character to increase their stats. And then the second kind is the person who just like, I need this roll to succeed. If this roll doesn't succeed, like that's it. I've let everybody down. I've let everybody down because I keep missing my rolls and I have to keep spending character points. And now my character is so far behind everybody else because of my character rolls. And it's not my fault. It's the dice. The dice made it so hard for me. I role played perfectly, but it's the RNG and it's punished me.
Well, it punishes everyone in every game. You're supposed to not make every roll. That's part of the story.
Then don't put this rule in that lets me give myself a bonus for character. Make it something else. Which they did. They have force points, and I like that.
Well, they have both. The force point is a much bigger bonus, but you only get 1 or 2 if you're a force user. And the way that works is, let's say you have 2 dice in the attribute, 1 in the skill. So you're rolling 3 dice normally, and you're like, oh, I need to make this. I'm going to spend my force point. And now instead of rolling 3 dice, I'm rolling 6. And that is way cooler. You're going to get a much bigger result. And that's cooler than the force point because, it's 6 dice. The downside is when you spend it, it's harder to get back. It has to be you can get it automatically back at the end of the game if the way you spent it was heroic. You can lose it at the end of the game and not get it back if the way you spent it was selfish or lame. Like you're like, oh, I'm going to spend my thing because I just want to look really cool, or I want to win this gambling thing because, screw that guy. I want to take his, vehicle. Then, yeah, you're going to lose the force point. To get another force point, you have to do something amazing without a force point to get one when you don't have one. And then if you spend a force point in an evil way, I forgot, you can actually get a dark side.
You could get a dark side, but you can also get a force point by calling on the dark side. You can be like, I call on dark side, and then you make a perception roll or a control roll. And if you make the difficulty on it, and the difficulty rises as you get more dark side points.
It's easy if you're doing something evil, though.
Yeah, and then you if you make the roll, you instantly get a force point that you have to spend on the roll that you're doing.
I would say if you are facing down a room of Jedi armed with lightsabers, but they're all children, you call upon the dark side, you are definitely going to have an easy roll on that one. Yeah, take out Jedi preschool.
I picked the kid template.
That would teach you if I picked that template.
Kid template versus Darth Vader. We're running out of time. What do you want to talk about? What's one thing in here that you need to really talk about before we go?
Like how much are we past time? You want to just do? Like
we are past time, but we started a little late. So
that's true. Yeah.
Let's talk about something you want to talk about in this game.
Okay, so there are interesting things about this game that I will always appreciate, like the wound level system in this game moved from this game to White Wolf because a guy named Mark Reinhagen was one of the writers for this game that moved on. to do White Wolf. That's why you'll find that they're very similar. The wounded, I almost said torpor, wounded, incapacitated, mortally wounded, and all that. Another thing that went from this game into other game systems and made its way into Dungeons and Dragons is the force point. Because when this mutated into the D20 system around the third edition era of D&D, they were like, well, we want to have that cool resource you can spend to do something amazing that you had in the old Star Wars game. So they included the force point, and then that got so popular in fourth and fifth edition of D&D. That's a thing that wasn't just in the Star Wars; it was now in Dungeons and Dragons too, and they call it inspiration. So I think it the entire genre of role playing games completely. And also, I always love level system, or sorry, skill based systems over level systems, because the fact that you're like, I'm a high level D&D character, I can fall down a mountain and I'll be fine at the bottom because I'm a warrior and I can take that many D6s of damage. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
So
Death is death.
okay. So I before we go, I do want to talk about another weird rule. I don't know if this is necessarily bad, but you can't dodge and shoot at the same time unless you take penalties to all your rolls. So during an action,
No, it's actually worse than that. They have reactive rolls in here. You're thinking of the D6 system. In here, if you use a reaction ability, when your turn comes around, you can't do anything.
yes. No, there is the
Uh,
there is the rule here too that you can take a number of actions and reduce your die code for each one of your actions that you do.
but that doesn't apply to reactions. Reactions in a different section. It directly states if you
Oh.
use your reaction ability before your turn, when your turn comes around, you can do nothing.
Okay, reaction skill. Of course, when someone tries to take a shot at you, okay, here's the reaction skills and what they're used for. Melee parry, lightsaber. Okay, when using a reaction skill, the character makes a skill roll. The roll the attacker's new difficulty number. Okay, full reaction. A character can make a full reaction.
Yeah, what full reaction means is we all have a base of 10. Like if I want to hit you, you have a 10. But if you want to roll dice, then you have whatever you rolled on the dice.
I think I read this in the player thing. Hold on. Where is it?
So I don't care for that. I do think that there needs to be a better way to work that out.
Actions in a round. The game is broken down into rounds. Your character can perform one action a round. If a character tries to do two things, lose one dice. If a character tries to do three things,
Turn yet I react when it comes around to your turn. You didn't take a penalty, therefore, I suppose you could rule it, although it doesn't say it. You could rule it that if you chose to take that penalty, take a one die penalty to your reaction roll, then you would still be able to take a one die penalty roll on your turn. But it doesn't say you can do that. That would be a ruling that would come from your game master.
that's hard. That is so difficult.
Which is
Wow.
why the way it reads, the way I would do it, it rules as written would say, I mean, if you want to use your reaction, you can, but or you could wait until your turn comes around. Maybe you take that first shot with only your 10 to protect you, but then when it is finally your turn, because obviously in this scenario you didn't go first, when it is your turn, take that penalty. So you from that point moving forward, you have your reaction up, and you're shooting at your one die down or whatever action you're doing at your one die down as well.
Right.
I would probably go that way as a player, um, but because there's nothing that says you can actually do what you thought it meant. I think you understand what I'm saying, all right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The rules are a little confusing.
They are, and again, I think that's a product of its time. I think that if they were to sit down and rewrite it today, they could streamline it, make it better. I
True.
love the basics of the game. I love the bones of it, there is a lot of
Speaking of that,
cosmetic changes I would make to the
si-
rules.
since we're ending the stream, or we're ending this video, what is your absolute favorite thing about this Star Wars game?
Um. Oh, geez. I kind of like because it's a level system. I like the idea that you can actually try anything, and I feel like in a level system you actually can like have a hope of doing something versus like a skill or sorry, a skill based system versus a level system. I'm saying it backwards because in this type of game, if you decide to go after some giant monster like a Rancor, uh, there's no on the level one character I can't do it. It's more of a I can plan for this. These are my skills. I can try and figure this out. And even as a basic new character, if you stack your points right, it's actually possible to do damage to a Rancor or come up with a plan. And I feel like that makes the game feel more realistic. And also the fact that getting shot will always hurt. Not a no, I'm at a level now where being attacked by stormtroopers no longer affects me. Like being attacked by goblins or orcs when you're, level 10 or 15. You're like, well, whatever. Those aren't anything. So that's what I love about this game is the skill based system.
I okay. What do I love? I could say that I like template systems because I like character creation that's just really simple. I don't. I know a lot of people love just micromanaging every little part of their character, and when I was younger, I would love that. But nowadays, I'm a bit more loosey goosey. I'm just like, I have a concept like this. Give me a template. I'll fit whatever personality into it that I have, and let's go. Let's go. I don't care as much about that anymore. But something that I think resonates with everybody, and something you talked about, was that force point. I thought the force point was such a great rule that I added it to other games that didn't have force points into it. Like when I
Yeah, we call it
ran
the cool point.
the cool point, we called it the cool point. That's what we called it. We would just add it to every game because it was such a really cool idea and a really great concept. And it was that save your ass. Like I I have a little trump card in my just in case I needed to save my butt or save everybody else's butt. It was one of the best rules to ever come out of this era of role-playing games, and I still love it. I still think it's amazing. To this day, I'm glad to see it in role. We have to put this on a tier list.
All right. For me, I'm gonna be honest. As much as I love the game, I am aware of its flaws. So I can't. It's definitely. I don't know of any game that's perfect. So I'm never gonna probably ever say S. Uh, I'm not gonna give it an A because it does have too many little inconsistencies, too many things that are like, I have to, as a game master, work around this or make this an optional rule that I don't use. So I can't give it an A. But I love a lot of the stuff it did and a lot of stuff it brought, and I would give it a B.
So, um,
Also, I
I
love Star Wars.
yeah, Star Wars wants me to. It's like the word Star Wars tells me it's A. Like, oh, it's A because it has the word Star Wars, and I love it. And all of the nostalgia and good times I had playing this
Yeah.
game wants me to put into
As soon as
A.
you say Star Wars, I'm like, well, maybe there is an S. It stands for Star Wars.
Exactly right. Um, but to me, like with all of the flaws in it, most of the flaws I can get over. But the difficulty ratings, I'm like, I don't like the difficulty ratings. Is it a C tier for me? I could put it in high C, like a C plus, but I think it's a B minus. I'm gonna put it in B tier with you. I think it's a B tier game.
I didn't realize that the tiers had pluses and minuses. But all right, then we'll
I
talk
mean,
about a
we're
B
we're
plus.
we're talking like these are grade school, like 100%. 90 to 99 is A, and S is like 100%, and B would be like in the 80s. So like B plus,
All
B
right,
minus. It's kind of a grade school kind of thing.
all right, I'm down. I got you.
So yeah, I'm gonna say it B tier. we'll do B tier for the entire thing, and you out there can argue whether it should be higher or lower in the comments. Um, what else? Anything else we need to talk about before we go? I think that's it. Howard, thank you for joining me on this Star Wars journey that we took today. It was fun. It was eye-opening how you view things and how I view things.
Yeah,
Um,
I know we disagree on some bits, but I think we also agree on a lot too. So
I think we
I think we're
do.
good.
I mean, this game has greatness, and if it could only have like made it to its fifth edition, we could have seen something glorious. But okay, before we go, do you want to tell the story of the downfall of West End Games? I think it has something to do with O.J. Simpson.
That part I don't know. That's news to me. I know that a guy bought. What I remember reading is that there was a guy that bought West End Games because he loved the games, and he was like, "That's awesome! I'm going to buy this. I'm going to make it great." And then he admitted that he mismanaged it and he screwed it up. So at the last minute, he made the whole system because by then 3.0 was out and the OGL existed for D&D, and he went, "Well, I screwed up. This whole thing's going under, so I'm putting an OGL on the D6 system." So that will allow the players and the fans to continue to use and make stuff for this game, even though West End is gone. I don't know the O.J.
So
Simpson connection.
okay, it's not
Was there
West
a
End
Make Again
Games.
game?
It's not West End Games that he mismanaged. He had another company that he mismanaged. And apparently, like, it was a company that OJ Simpson liked. I think it was a shoe company that OJ Simpson wore his shoes from, or something like that. It had some connection to OJ Simpson. And because of that, it was tanking. And he took money from West End Games and used it to prop up this shoe company. And he lost both of them in the process.
Oh, well, that is unfortunate. So I was basically right. I just missed a bit. All right. I know. I remember a lot of it.
If we could both be wrong, hey, look it up for yourself. I'm sure the complete story is out there somewhere, but these are the things that we learned throughout the
Yeah.
years.
So for all the people that are unhappy with a certain big company that's making a certain big RPG, there's an OGL slapped on this game. He literally just copy pasted the OGL from 3.0, but he did want y'all to use it. You can't use Star Wars, obviously, because that's Disney's. But you can use the D6 system, and that includes Fantasy D6 and the Adventure D6 and Space, I think it's called. They have a lot of them, and he wanted you to do it. So
You can
feel
get
free.
you can get them on Drive Through RPG. I downloaded all the books. That said, this version of Star Wars has a huge community out there still updating this game. Every time a new movie comes out, every time a new book comes out, they will take that movie, that game, that book, and convert everything in there into old West End D6 rules. And these communities exist. I have some of their like newer books that they've compiled to keep this game alive and running. People love it. So if you want to play it, there are people out there that want players. Yeah. And I think with that, we can say goodbye. So from Howard, myself, my name is Corey. Go out there and roll them dice.